Hey, 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 YouTube subscribers. How are you guys doing today? Today, I'm going to talk about getting creative. Um, in respect to the Gods of Orlea campaign that I'm running. Um, with this campaign, since they are tripping back and forth through time, you have to keep it kind of interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of the time trips that they've taken. Most recently, my two dwarven player characters were sent back along their timeline to a time before they were born, uh, to their home in Stonedale in Iron Hollow, which you can see on this side of the map over here. Um, on the what would be the left side of the map, I suppose, to me anyway. So anyway, they go back and they arrive inside of this sort of guild hall, dwarven, obviously, and they end up meeting their father. And they, of course, he has no idea who they are. They introduce themselves as Osric and Rohir Mithrilborn, and he's like, "That's impossible. That you're not who you say you are," because they're like, "Oh, we're your sons." He's like, "Oh, no, you're not." Um, and then they basically are imprisoned. They put them in jail, lock them up. At one point, Rohir, the player himself, was talking to me about it. He's like, this was the one time I thought it for sure. He's like, I thought I was going to get into a scrap with my own father, and I was like, wouldn't that have been an interesting thing? I wonder how that would have affected the timeline as you guys went back to the present. So he didn't get a chance to do that. So he was in prison, but then he met his mother, or they met their mother, and also found out a secret that they found out something they had no idea, and that was the fact that they had an older brother. And he was a baby when they were there in the past, and that child was actually kidnapped by a higher power, a dark power, um, for reasons unknown at the time. At least to the players. I mean, I know, but I can't talk about that because my players actually watch these, so I don't want them to get any spoilers. So, but that was one, and they fought some Growls, some dark Growls, and they also fought I think six or seven fire giant dreadnoughts, and it was funny because. Uh, my dwarf cleric, two of these big, gigantic, monstrous dreadnoughts break through this wall, and they're like standing there with their double shields, and he casts banishment, and of course, they fail their checks, and they both get banished to an alternate plane, and then he starts mouthing off at, haha, look at that, blah blah blah, and of course, me being the GM, I'm like, oh, here, hold my mead, as suddenly, boom, there's like five more of these bad boys, and it was a pretty brutal battle, but they lived. They won the day. My Fire Genasi player who plays the Fire Genasi, Arson, she ethereal stepped and went to the ethereal plane to see if she could figure out what was going on with the baby. And when she was there, she found this circle of 12 tall, lanky beings, with no faces, just a blackness, swirling blackness where their faces would be, and these sort of hooded figures surrounding the baby that was basically on a plinth, and they had this sort of light coming from the darkness to the baby, and they had this sort of energy shield around them. And she tried to get through and tried several different things, but and she attacked one of or two of them, and they attacked her back, and eventually she had to drop out of the ethereal plane, and she just couldn't save the child, but. Came back and was like, "Hey, what's going on in here?" And there's these these gigantic things. So she joined the fight, and so that was a fun fight. And at the end of that fight, the mother was like, "Oh, if she was, I believe you that you're my sons," very affectionate, and tells them and gives them their mission, which is to find their brother. And the time jumps that they do, every time they do a time jump, it's for them to either fight the big bad, and they have to solve a problem of some kind, or they're there to get information. In this case, that was the information they needed from their mother. And then of course they come back to the present. And one of the great things about they love about that is once they come back to the present, they have all their stuff back. So it's like they've taken a long rest. Another one was when we went back along the line of Jade Luna, and we went to her village, and we talked about this in her interview. We went back to the village when she was a baby, and the the elder woman, I guess the healer of the village of her village, basically recognized her as who she was and kept dropping these sort of little hints and things like that, and it was fun. And then she also met the person who sires her or turns her into a Lethari. She met him there as well. Um, and she meets her brother, and her brother figures out who she is, and it was really neat. And basically, they had to fight these things off that were going to kill the people in her village, and they fought them off. And then they came back to the present. And we so far have traveled along everyone's timelines. We've traveled along Arson, the fire genasi. We went to her island at one point, and it was way in the future, or not way in the future, but in the future. And her island, there was a huge temple to this sort of deity, this dark deity that was never there before, and they had to go in, and it was this huge like puzzle. They all had to figure out riddles and things like that. Which, let me tell you, give them a whole basically session of like solving riddles and puzzles, and it'll drive them crazy. But it was fun to watch them do it, and some great role play was happening too. Um, and then one of my favorites, and I know that probably wasn't really one of the favorites of the party, but that's okay because I'm the GM and it was mine. And that's when they skipped 500 years into the future. And in my campaign, I set the present day in like the 1300s, give or take AD. So like 1380s in that area. And they skip ahead 500 years, so they're in the 1880s. And so I decided to make the world very old Western. So they come into this town that is set up like an old Western, style town. They're all dressed sort of in the 1880s garments. They have guns. So the party didn't know what a gun was, so they had to learn about what a gun was and how to use it and how to fire it. And then they had to go to this sort of it was basically a dwarven mine, and to find this character named Lycus, who had come from the past as well, or the present to the future. And they needed to get some information from him, but he was being held captive. So they went in, and they got to use guns for the first time. It was pretty cool. It was one of my favorites. It was just like old Western, with the saloons and, the busty barmaids, that sort of thing. We're still there. That sort of Mae West type of feel. But yeah, so each of these sort of encounters, it's important that I try to get everyone involved. And the hardest ones I had was my two dwarves. I wasn't really sure how to get that. I had the idea of an older brother way at the beginning of this campaign, but I didn't know how to execute it. And then suddenly I was like, oh, this is perfect. So, and then I threw all sorts of prophecies at them and all this really fun stuff. And, they're trying to figure all out what it all means. And, because when they come to the big bad at the end, uh, all these prophecies sort of I'm assuming, come to fruition. Because it depends on what I want it to do. But yeah, so um, you have to be creative. Like the Old West, that was extremely outside of this idea of the D&D world, the traditional D&D worlds. But I wanted to throw that in there and give them something fun to do. So each of these sort of encounters, there's a lot of fun involved in it. They get to do some fun stuff. They get to encounter some fun monsters. They get to, this, that, and the other. And each of them has been a trooper. Uh, the the old west, I know they were all like, okay, with guns, whatever. But I was like, I thought it was fun. So anyway, as the GM, you can have your thing. Whether if the players don't like it, that's okay. But I had a great time, and so far, all of the ones I've created so far, I've had a pretty good time. I think they have too. If not, they're lying to me and being very nice, and I'm okay with that. Now they're on a ship. This is the first time the party's been on a ship in my campaign, and so they have a lot of fun characters and some serious dangers coming ahead. So yeah, be creative, guys. Get as creative and fun. It is a game. Keep it light. Keep it fun. You can have those beautiful, poignant moments, and you can have those serious, like death-defying moments. I've come very close to killing my my players. Uh, so don't be afraid to do that either. And that's topic for another video. But yeah, so get out there, be creative, have fun. You're going to hear me say that a lot about having fun. Don't be afraid to experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you just move on. That's okay. I've done several things in this campaign that I felt didn't work. The players were like, "Oh, that was so much fun." They're probably just being super nice, and that's fine too. But yeah, so be creative, be fun, be loud. It's D&D, man. This is you get to be something you're not in real life. You get to play a whole other person. I mean, this is like an actor's dream. Myself being an actor, I love it, and a director, and to be in the gym is fantastic. So, yeah, so have fun, be creative, think outside of the box, throw cool new things at them, things that the characters from this world wouldn't necessarily encounter in this world, and just have fun. So this is Halfling Wizard. Until next time, keep playing.